Keith and I were talking about just what's kind of astounding across the area. Now, obviously, a lot of what you see here was done by storm surge, but there are things that we can point out that were definitely done by wind. And before we walk over to where we're going to go eventually, I'd like to show you where really the rooftop to our left. Now, that's about 50 feet off of the ground, and there's hurricane straps on all of those trusses that are up there, which means that it was not wind that peeled that off. It was material that was flying from the homes that are no longer present, which we're going to show you just a second when we walk over there. But the material got lifted off of the ground and flew at least 50 feet in the air to hit that roof, create enough of a hole to break those hurricane straps and lift that roof off. So that gives you just a peek of what the wind did on top of just the immense storm surge that we have through here.
You know, that's the other part of hurricanes, Ross. And folks that live along the coast know this. You've got the wind threat, and you've got the storm surge threat. We're going to kind of circle around back here, and if Kyle can, kind of zoom between us to get an idea of what we're looking at back here. If we can kind of focus on that palm tree. There used to be houses all the way up to that palm tree, and those houses at the front of this beach actually were destroyed, pushed into the homes that you see left standing. So there probably was another 6 or 8 units. Both Ross and I on our Facebook pages either have posted or will post videos. We did a walk around to kind of show the idea of the damage that was done close up. And you got vehicles that were pushed. These vehicles probably weren't parked here, Ross. I'm sure they were parked up the street or elsewhere in the community and ended up here because that storm surge came in rather quickly. It stayed up for, what would you say, 3-4 hours perhaps?
Probably 3-4 hours.
And then it receded, and then it just dropped everything in place. Obviously, a picture of utter devastation that was expected with this storm. This was a big storm coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about really storm surge. The science behind storm surge is relatively well known, is that it really doesn't have to do with the core wind field. Now, obviously, as that intensifies, then you're going to get higher storm surge closer to that eye. But the overall storm surge is really done by relative motion of the hurricane and the strength of the hurricane over a longer duration.
Right.
So this thing rapidly intensified, which is why we're not talking about the 17 feet storm surge we have here well into the coast all the way through the Big Bend area back toward the peninsula area that you would have seen with something like Katrina. Now that brought in 20 foot.
Actually, yeah, it had a much longer track over water.
Right.
And that allowed, and same with Hurricane Ike. Hurricane Ike made landfall as a Category 2 hurricane in southeast Texas while I was there. And people on Bolivar Peninsula experienced Category 5 storm surge of well over 25 to 30 feet.
Yeah, and that has to do with the overall size of the hurricane and the relative motion of the hurricane, how long it stays strong. This is a smaller storm, so the biggest storm surge was right where we're standing and in a relatively small area. But again, as Keith said, well forecasted, a good 24, 48 hours ahead of time. The forecast was 7 to 14 feet. Now we got 15 to 17 feet. So that has to equate to really the overall rapid deepening that we saw as this thing moved toward the coast. That created that storm surge that we have here right near the eye wall, because obviously this was in the eye wall, and we were talking about the damage that we've seen, or the videos we've seen that were posted from Mexico Beach, mainly of GoPro videos, so somebody that wasn't here shooting the video.
Right.
It was somebody that had attached it to something. And the storm surge didn't just come in slowly, it came in rapidly, almost like a surge in a river, or what you would expect when you were talking about a tsunami wave.
Right, I mean, we've all seen videos, I'm sure people have, in Japan of the tsunamis, basically like a bore tide or tidal bore going up a river. And that's the same thing that happens here, but on a much larger scale.